This is Ryan Giesbrecht with Prairie Badminton, and this is going to be taking you through how to string a racket that's already been pre-woven. So the strings are already in it, but we need to tension it on the machine here. So there's a few options here that you have on the dashboard. The main one is the tension, how tight you want it. And then speed is how quickly it pulls. Pre-stretch is pulling. There's a few different options. I'll just show you the main ones. The first one is the tension here. So this is how many pounds it's pulling to, right? So I can change it down, I can change it up. For my racket, I'm gonna do 27 pounds here. Speed is how quickly it pulls it. Obviously, a higher speed, you go quicker, but it's harder on the strings. So I'm just gonna go low. I don't need to go any faster than that. It's a little bit easier on the strings. And then pre-stretch. Pre-stretch option is if you want it to pull it more than this amount, it'll do a percentage more, and then it'll go back to this setting. So if I did it 5%, it would do 5% more than 27, and then it would bring it back down to 7. And that's to hopefully get some of the stretch out of the strings before you hand it over to the customer so that it doesn't lose tension later on. And so that's a little bit by preference. So I'm just going to go 0. I don't need to do a pre-stretch. So the settings are what I want it to be. Now I'm going to mount it onto the machine. So I'm going to make sure that I mount it. Come closer. Okay, I'm going to make sure that I mount it in the middle, right? Middle of the frame here and middle of the frame here. Okay, and then these sidebars, I want them to clamp evenly. I don't want them have like lower down near the throat and in the middle because they're not supporting up here very well. I want it very, very much in the middle there. So this is pretty good right here. Okay, so then I can start getting it clamped onto the racket. And when I do this, I want it to be snug, holding it in place, but I don't want it to be stretching the frame. Okay, so I need to be going, okay, getting a little bit of tension on it, holding it in place, okay, and holding it in place like that. Can you go in from this angle here like this? Okay, so if I do these ones, these are the small bars here, it's gonna pull it this way to keep tension. If I do this one too much, you can actually see the frame stretch a little bit. So this is stretched and this is back to normal. So you want to keep the integrity of the frame as much as possible. So like I said, you want it to be snug, but you don't want to be warping it. You want to try to keep it where it is. Okay, so I like that. Okay, that's good for me. So it's set. Okay, it's secure. It's not going to warp when we're on there. That's especially important the tighter you're stringing it. Okay, now what I'm going to do, I'm going to get these underneath. Good. And I'm going to start. Now remember, there's always nuances to everything that you do, but this is the way I do it. Okay, so I'm going to take the middle 2 strings here, so the ones coming in this way, I'm going to start by putting in here. Okay, so that's going to pull it, and now I'm going to clamp. When you clamp, you want to get it as close to the pull as possible. So I'm not clamping it up here. I'm going to clamp it as close to that pull as possible. This one's in the way of that one, so I can't go side by side. So that's the best I'm going to get on the first pull. To release it, I'm just going to push that. It releases it. Now I can flip it over and I can pull it from the other side. Okay, so some people like to take shortcuts and they'll skip and pull every second. So that would mean instead of me pulling these, I would pull it and then I would pull it back the other way and pull it there again. But I'm going to do every single one, and that keeps really good integrity on the tension that I have on my racket. So now I have it coming this way. I'm going to pull that to 27 pounds. I can release this one, and I can clamp that as close as I can. That's as close as I can get. The teeth are grabbing, and I'm going to lock this bar in place so that it doesn't move. So now this is holding there, that's holding there. I can release it, and I'll pull this side. So once that's pulled, I can move this one. So I'll pull that. Now I'm going to release the bottom one first, and I'm going to release the teeth, and I'm going to pull it down, making sure not to rub the strings with the teeth when I go. Okay, so I'm grabbing, I'm locking the bottom one in place so those don't move, and I can come and do the other side. Okay, so now we're just going to work methodically our way through the racket. So now I'm pulling the very next one. Once it's done pulling, I can clamp it again. I'm going to get pretty close to the edge there. And then I'm going to move on. I'm going to do this one. I used to do a little bit higher tension, 29, 30 pounds, but I do so much feeding, and I don't like to string my racket that often, so I want my strings to last a little bit longer, but I found 27 pounds gives me a good feel for hitting, good control, and it lasts a little bit longer. It's a little bit more forgiving than 29 and 30. So all preference. Okay, so again, just working my way through. Good. One after another. Once I get to the edges, it gets a little bit tricky, and I'll show you what happens there. Okay, so I'm going there. Okay, so when I'm pulling this, you'll notice that I get it up in the throat and I angle it this way so that when I'm pulling, it's tied up in there. If I were to try to do it like this, just flat, and I'm pulling like this and I don't have a finger under there, it could slip and I could cut the string with my awl, and I don't want to do that. So I make sure it's up near the throat like that, and I can pull, and there's no chance of cutting the string. Okay. Always want to protect the string as much as possible when you're stringing. And there, trying not to bite it with the teeth, scratch it with the teeth of the clamps. Now, obviously, the more you do, the quicker you get, and the more you can do per hour, the more money you're making. And you just want to make sure that you're not going so fast that you make mistakes, because this is your customer's racket you want to take care of. It's good to practice on your own racket before you do customers. Make sure you get confident. People sometimes like to talk to you while you're stringing a racket, and you try to be courteous and talk back, but if you're distracted and you're not experienced, it's easy to make a mistake. I've made mistakes in the past as well because of that, just being distracted, kind of losing track of where I was and then trying to rush. And mistakes do happen, but you try your best to make sure that you don't, right? So there we go, getting closer to the edge. Good. This one. Good. One other thing, when I'm clamping, I'll show you in this next one, I don't go right, whoops, right to the bottom. I'll show you in a second. Okay, let me see here. Okay, string's just getting a little windy. Okay, I'm gonna pull that. Okay, now there's obviously space below and up top. Okay, you don't want to clamp it like right on the edge because it's maybe going to slip. But also you don't need to go right to the bottom. You kind of want to get it right in the middle. Okay, floating between the top and the bottom, right in the middle there. It's kind of where you want to clamp it. Okay, here we go. I'll do that again here. Let's pull, loosen. Over here, I'm going to just pass right in the middle. That's where we clamp it, and that's a good safe spot. Okay, now if you come over here, now we're getting to the edge. So when I come through here, the whole way we've been doing one string next to the other and tightening it as we go. But now when we get close to the side string, we don't go down here and then up here and then there, and there's a reason for that. What we do on this here, this third one, we go here, we skip the second last one so we can go to the outside, and then we come back on the second one because then it's right next to the next hole we need to go into for the crosses. Or in the case of this one, when we come back here, we're going to tie it off right here, and that means we're going to hand tighten it this much space. If I went here and then here, well, then we're hand tightening it twice as far, which means we can lose a little bit of tension from the hand tightening to tie it off. So by going on the outside and coming in, we're reducing the amount of tension loss by hand tightening only that amount of space. So we got to remember when we come, now when we're coming here, this is really nice. You should always check before you're stringing to make sure. And when you're pre-weaving, this is what you want. You want the strings parallel to each other. You don't want them crisscrossing, because when you pull it, that puts a lot of tension on the string itself, right? So when they're beside each other, they're not pulling, clamping down on each other, and that'll help the integrity of the strings there. Okay, so we're going to pull this. And same for here, we're going to pull this. Okay, and we're going to pull that like normal. And we're going to pull this like normal. Now you can see the angle to the racket changes as you go along, and that's totally fine. Okay, but now it's going, skipping that one, coming on the outside. So now when I pull it through here, okay, there we go. And I'm pulling it through here. There we go. And now you got to remember, you're not pulling here, you're pulling from the outside, because that's where it's coming through. So I'm going to double check, make sure it's still parallel, which it is. Sometimes I use my thumb here to just make sure it doesn't move where it's going. Okay. And then I'll pull. And then I can clamp that as close as I can. It's as close as I can get. And you notice I'm going side to side just to even out the tension. Okay, so I'm pulling on the outside here. I'm going to check here. It's above and it's above. That's nice. No crisscrossing. Good. Good. And you'll see on both sides there's only one loose main string. We call these the mains. Okay, this one's loose and this one's loose. And so this one is going to tie off. Okay, so that's the end of this guy over here. All right, this one's going to tie off. I'll show you that. So now we're going to tighten that. Good. And I'm going to clamp it as close as I can. Good. And now we're going to tie off right in there. So here I'm going to get my clippers. I'll cut this on an angle. That'll make it easier to poke through there. Okay, now I got this sharp little edge here that I can poke through here. And you'll notice there's some big grommets and there's some little grommets. Okay, the big grommets are there because we need to fit this through there so that we can tie it off. It's giving me some resistance. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to take my awl. I'm going to put it on this upward angle so I don't poke the string. And I'm just going to squeeze and twist till I see it come out the other side. Okay, and that's just loosening the plastic a little bit so that now when I put through here, it'll go through nice and easy. Okay. And now what I'm going to do, I got to tie it. So I'm going to go under there and then through. I'll show you again. So I'm going to tighten that. Okay, I'll show you again. I'm going to go under and then through. So I did that twice. That's tied off. I'm just going to tuck this out of the way. And that's tied off. Now, watch when I loosen this. You'll see I'll lose a tiny bit of tension. Okay, lost a tiny bit of tension. If this was this much, I would have lost even more tension. Okay, so now that's holding it there. I technically don't need this clamp anymore. This side, we're not tying off. This is what we call a one piece. So when this goes to the end, it actually comes in and that begins our crosses. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to get this without poking it. There we go. Okay. And then I can pull it through. There we go. And now I'm going to pull that. That'll be my last main. Okay. Now that I'm done my last main, I'll be able to start my crosses. Good. So we finished the mains. Hooray. Okay. So now it's going from here through here, and we're doing our crosses. Okay, so the weaving has mostly been done. We'll have to do at the end here. Okay, so first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to pull it through. Okay. Okay, so now when you're doing the crosses, it's going to be rubbing. Sometimes it has a shared hole. Other strings are going through it. So two strings through the same hole on a lot of points. Where the strings kind of rub beside each other, because they've got texture, sometimes it kind of winds itself up and gets a little bit twisty. So now when I do the crosses, I hold the other end just to make sure it doesn't do this on itself, because then it can knot and it can actually pinch and rupture the string. So I do this just to keep it straight. Okay, and we're not twisting up on itself. Anytime I pull, I'm making sure we're not crossing over, so I'm just making sure that's good there. Okay, and oh, I just woke it up. Here we go. Pull. Now I'm going to clamp on this side. Again, I'm going to go pretty close to the frame there. I can relax it. Oops, there we go. And we're going to do the other side here. So you can see that there's a number of strings. They're parallel, which is good. This is the one I'm going to pull through. Okay, I'm going to use my opposite hands to guide it. Okay, and you can see here, there's 3 crossing here, so it gets pretty tight. I don't want this to accidentally fold over, so I'm just going to pinch that down like this, and I'm going to put this through the machine. If you watch, maybe watch this while I'm doing it. So I pinch that down, I'm going to pull it. Okay, and there's nothing crossing over, which is great. So I'm going to loosen this, going to tight. Okay, now that that's tight, this one's not needed anymore, so I'll be able to move that over. Let's grab the next one. So we'll just move on to the next string. Okay, again, gonna get there. There should be no crossovers, ideally. Okay, it's not the end of the world if you do a crossover, but you're trying for high quality, then you don't have any crossovers. Okay, I've played with crossovers. I have a racket right now that was not done to perfection, but I still use it. It doesn't bother me that much. But if you've got a customer who does care a lot, then you want to be cognizant of that. So, all right. So you always make sure you're pulling the right string. So this is the string I'm pulling, and make sure there's no crossover there. Okay. Good. Okay. Now that's the toughest part because you have potential crossovers. This part too, you have potential crossovers, although a lot of times now they're doing separate ones here. You can see they've got one in between there so that you're not sharing holes up here. So you got a lot less probability of crossovers here. Here, you have to be careful not to have any crossovers, a little bit more. Once you're in the middle section, it's kind of smooth sailing. So you just got to make sure that your string doesn't get all twisty, knotted on you as you go through the middle. Okay? There's nothing going on there. All right. And we're off to the races. I'm using Victor Care Bear string right now. Typically, I like to use a VBS 66 Nano. That's the string I'm using right now. I really enjoy it. I like the colors. Comes in a nice turquoise, like a pink, as well as a lavender. So any of those work really good with this racket. Arc Saber, or sorry, Aura Speed 90K metallic. Been using this one for about a year, and I used the 90K2 before that, and I used the 90K original one before that. So I've really enjoyed using this racket, and VBS 66 Nano has been really nice. Feel for me. I'll make another video at some point just going through some of the string available, how to choose, just what are the basics that you need to let a customer know about string so that they can make an informed decision without making it too complicated that they get paralysis by analysis. As well as for rackets, how to choose a racket that is good for you, that you'll like. If you come down to Prairie Badminton to shop for a racket, then you have the opportunity to try it out before you buy it, which is really, really nice, because you sometimes never know until you try it out whether you actually like it or not. I've had people come in thinking they want a really heavy racket, and they end up leaving with a medium balance racket because it actually felt much better and they just hadn't tried that before. Vice versa, they thought a light racket was the best thing in the world just because that's something they heard from a friend. But then they end up going with a medium balance or heavy racket because it actually works better for their size, strength, swing, just the timing of it. Okay, so with the string tension, if you're going tighter than 27, you're going to get more control. You're going to get more feel on the bird and more control, which is really nice. So you see the pros, they use 30 pounds, 31 pounds, maybe even 32 pounds because they need such good control. And it's okay. They've probably got 8 rackets in their bag. They can break strings and they get someone to fix it for them. But you don't necessarily, some people think that if you go up to 32 pounds, you're getting more power as you go. You're not getting more power. You definitely get power up to a point. I like to think around 27, 28 pounds. Beyond that, I don't think you're getting much more power, but you are gaining control, but you're risking stringing or breaking your strings a little bit quicker. I don't want to switch my strings all the time, so I do a happy medium. Someone who plays moderately and maybe once a week, twice a week, doesn't want to spend a lot of money all the time on strings. You might want to do 25, 26 pounds. Still feels good. It's going to last a lot longer for you. But feel free to experiment and see what you like. It definitely does feel good and sounds really good when you string it really tight. If you're doing 28, 29, it gives it a really loud, sharp bang sound when you smash with that higher tension strings. So I get why people really like that. So we're getting close to the end of the midsection here, toward the top of the racket. And once we get there, we're going to have to start weaving it to finish it off. Okay, so we're just about at the end. We're doing great. Why? What? What? Oh, that's okay. Weird. All right, so Okay, nothing overlapping. Good. Okay, let's see here. All right. Okay. Okay, so I'm not going to pull that yet. First, I'm going to, because I got a knot on the end and that's what it kept it from slipping back through. So I'm just going to cut that again at an angle so that it's easier. I got a nicer point to try and get it through here. All right, so now that I'm here, I gotta take a look what the first one is and do the opposite. So this one was over, so I'm gonna start going under. And then I just alternate from there. So I'm going to go over, under, push it up, push it down, push it up, push it down. Just like that. Okay, so I got one finger above, one below. And when I get to the end, I should be opposite. So that's under, and I'm going over, so I know I didn't miss any by accident. So now I'm one ahead. I'll tension the one before it, which is this one, making sure there's no overlap. I'll tension that. I'll relax it, and I will pull it through. You can see it trying to wind itself up. Okay. All right, now I'm going to, here's a tricky spot if you take a look at it. So it's not a shared hole, but it's right in between where we tension. So it's very difficult to fit it through there. If it's a worn out grommet, you might be able to pinch it through. Okay, one thing you can try is to take your awl and just nudge it enough to get it through like that. Okay, so that was barely enough, but you got to be careful when you do that because you don't want to clip it and snag it and rupture the string itself. Okay, so another trick that some people use is they'll take a string previously used. Okay, I'll show you this version, and they will poke it through like that. So you've got a handle. Good. Now I can use that to just pull it down out of the way a little bit, and that helps me poke it through. Now I can get rid of this guy. And she's through. All right. So I'm under there, so I got to start over. Good. Going under, over, under, over. And the more you do this, the faster you get. Now, if you can see, it's trying to poke through, but it's getting stopped there. Oh. So I need to help it just a little bit. There we go. Okay, you can also should have these little needle nose pliers, right? If you could only get it that much, you'd probably be able to grab that and pull it through. Okay, so you should have some good tools there to help you out. Okay, now I'm gonna tension that one. Make sure we're good there. Whoop. All right, we're looking good. As I'm poking bell here. There we go. All right. Okay, so make sure I'm the opposite. Under, over. You got smaller hands, it's a little bit easier. Bigger hands, a little tougher. Okay. All right. If you're good at sewing, you'll be great at this. Okay. Tension. Or maybe you'll be good at sewing because of this. Who knows? Here, my goal is just to hit bell here as much as possible. All right. Okay. Now you can see it gives the crosses their own grommets up top here. I've only got one more cross left. So then I'm done. Some rackets are nice like that. Kind of just tells you when you're done. Got nothing left to put it through. Okay. Right? Trying to fit my big hands through here. Right, might have to switch hand position. Right, under. I ended up the last string opposite from one before it, so I know I didn't miss anything by accident. Okay, let's see, where is it trying to get here? Okay, maybe I'll try to spin it, go the opposite direction. It can be finicky. There we go. And I'll just use that. Pull it through. Good. Now I just have 2 pulls left and I'm done. Okay, so we're good. Whoops. All right, here we go. Good. And the very last one, let's see if it tries to wind itself up a little bit here. Not too bad. Okay. All right. And we pull that. And then we tie off just the same that we did at the bottom of the racket near the throat. So now we're at the top. I'm just going to cut off a little bit, okay, at an angle, make it easier to work with. Good. Okay, and I have a shared grommet here. It's much bigger. You can see that grommet is much bigger than any of these other ones beside it, as it's designed so that I can fit 2 strings through there. There we go. Okay, so I'm going to pull it, and then I'm going to go down and up. Oops, make sure you put it up through the same string. There we go. And I can tighten that. Give it a little wiggle and pull so that it's as tight as you can be, but there's not a lot of space from there to there. We're not going to lose a lot of tension there, which is nice. Okay. All right. Now it's tied off. So we're all done. I can relax those, take those off, and then I just loosen the side. Ooh. Okay. And she's all done. We finish by clipping off. Now what I do, I don't like to make it too close, but I can use the edge here as a guide to snip that and snip that. So I got a little bit left there. Okay, that's not going to bother anyone, but that way I didn't cut it too short and it doesn't slip back through by accident. Sounds like 27 pounds, looks like 27 pounds, and we're good to go. All right, thank you everyone. Have a great day.